The F8C Lightning is finally here after 10 years of waiting. What was once a $10,000+ backer reward or incentive, depending on how you want to look at it, is now available for the general public, provided you do some trivial nonsense and get golden tickets. There is absolutely no way to sugarcoat this. This ship is beyond overpowered, easily the most overpowered ship ever released, and it will be nerfed. And it will be nerfed hard. The F8C Lightning nerf will be so severe that it'll make the Ion and the Inferno look like child's play. But let's get into this. Let's compare this. Let's understand why this ship's going to be nerfed, and then let's talk a bit about the outrage and the debacle that the F8C has caused. Since this ship has come out, it has raised over $1.7 million in crowdfunding. This is absolutely insane. That is an insane amount of money for a single ship, and it's not even IAE yet. It is very easy to understand why CAG decided to sell this ship. Unfortunately, everyone who bought this ship is in for a very, very rude awakening whenever it will inevitably, as I stated, get nerfed. Since this ship is a heavy fighter, we are going to primarily be comparing it to heavy fighters. A pilot far better than I am on our Discord gave me a great analogy here, and the comparison is that the F8C Lightning is just a super Vanguard, and he is absolutely correct. And we are going to use that as our baseline example, or at least our start of the comparisons. If you look at this summary chart, you can see the F8 Lightning, which is a single-seat, heavy fighter with 2 size 2 shield generators, whereas a Warden is a crude heavy fighter with 2 size 2 shield generators, right? So they're kind of the same like that. The Lightning blows it out of the water in every single relevant category. It's not even close. The Vanguard looks like junk compared to this, and it's supposed to be a 2-man heavy fighter. The chart speaks for itself. It's just better in every way. If we start to compare the Alpha to the F8 Lightning when using the best build, and we'll be using the best build for every ship in this video, the burst damage of the F8 Lightning from the pilot alone is 4,000 DPS. For the weapons alone, one pilot. No missiles, just weapons. 4,000 DPS. Now let's compare that to the Vanguard. The Vanguard, with the pilot alone, has 2,400 DPS. If you put the gunner in there, it has 800 DPS. If you combine the pilot and the gunner, that is 3,200 DPS. That is still less DPS burst than the F8 Lightning, which is a single-seat heavy fighter. Now let's compare it to the Anvil Hurricane. The Anvil Hurricane is a classic heavy fighter. It's the quintessential heavy fighter in my opinion. Looking at this chart, again, the single-seat F8 Lightning blows it away in every single category. There is not one that the Anvil Hurricane is better at than the Lightning. So now, let's again go over to the damage and check that out. The Hurricane has a pilot DPS of 1,280 and a turret DPS of 2,000. If you combine the two of them, that is 3,280. Still short of the F8 Lightning. You kind of get a pattern here. You see where I'm going with this? Comparing the F8 to the Scorpius, it's not as bad, but it's still pretty obvious. The F8 Lightning has a beat in all relevant metrics, with the Scorpius being slightly better in pitch and yaw, ever so slightly, but again, not nearly enough to make up for everything else. Let's check out the firepower. Scorpius features a pilot DPS of 2,000 and a turret DPS of 2,000. This puts it on par with the F8 Lightning. This requires 2 players for it to be on par. However, the Lightning, with its 2 size 2 shield generators and single pilot guns, is still very likely to beat this ship. This is probably the least affected of all of them, but is still outperformed by the Lightning in any relevant PvP metric. The only other single-seat heavy fighter in the game is the Ares series of ships. We will be comparing the Ion here to it, so we're not going to really worry about the Inferno in terms of performance because they're both the same. But looking at the Ares series here, again, outclassed in essentially every way. This thing has no chance against the Lightning. But now you must be saying, oh, well, the Ares is for killing bigger ships. All right, cool. Check out the damage. Let's see how they do. Well, what a shock. The Ares Starfighter Ion is worse than the F8 Lightning, with a pilot DPS of 3.850. That is burst DPS, alright? 3,800. Still less than the F8C. and it's a single-seater ship. If you want to kill a bigger ship right now, you're better off in the F8C. How about the Inferno? How does it stack up? And we finally have a heavy fighter that does more damage than the F8. And it's the Starfighter Inferno, the Inferno variant here at 4,700 DPS. Now, this comes at the disadvantage of being slow. Velocity-wise, cannons are slow, as you all know. Limited ammunition, and being ballistic. Because remember, ballistics take reduced damage. So if you were to factor in the reduced damage that this game has, like armor, so for example here, 50% physical damage reduction on the Ares here, anything you hit that has damage reduction, it's going to do less. So actually, this is still less. It's still less. It's still worse than the F8. Still worse. So what single-seat ship in this game that has lasers is capable of putting out equal to or better DPS, alpha, mind you, than the F8 Lightning? What could it be? Well, there's one, and they do not compare in performance, so I'm not even going to waste my time showing you the performance. But for alpha damage, the Corsair is the only ship with a pilot DPS, that outperforms the F8 Lightning, an entire tier up. And we all know the Lightning would just chew through the Corsair anyway and would never get guns on target. But that should illustrate how absurd, how absolutely absurd the F8 Lightning is currently. So, what should we do? Well, this ship needs to be nerfed. That is without a doubt what needs to happen. And funnily enough, as of right now, as of 10/12/2023, this ship is currently in the process of being nerfed on the PTU. I'm going to put it up on screen here, and it looks like the first thing that they've done to it is reduce the shield generators to battle size 1. That's pretty significant. That's actually insane. And good, I say. This ship needs to be brought in line with everything else. Is it a heavy fighter? If you put it down to a size 1 shield, I don't know. I don't think so anymore. Not at all. I think SCIG has got to take a look at what they quantify as a heavy fighter. For me, a heavy fighter qualification is at least size 2 shield generators, 2 of them, or 1. So at least a size 2 shield generator and a crew. The Ion and the Inferno, they have its own niche. They get away with it because they're not maneuverable. They are meant to attack big ships that cannot outmaneuver it. The F8 Lightning seems like it's meant to be a better air superiority fighter, but it outclasses lights, and it outclasses mediums, and it outclasses heavies. Essentially, this whole ship needs to be reclassified and essentially redesigned. So, the controversy around this ship comes from the fact that people have been waiting for over 10 years now for this ship to finally come out. It was the Wing Commander, which is the $10,000 backer and above tier. They finally got their ship, but instead of the limited exclusivity of it, they decided to release it along with the golden tickets. This has caused a lot of people to be upset, understandably so. I myself have the Executive Edition, which is the 15k backer tier of the F8 Lightning, so I still have some exclusivity here. So, I have a little bit of a different perspective on it. However, I feel like this was all just a very bad idea. I think nobody's going to be happy in the end with this. The backers who backed and waited for 10 plus years to enjoy a little bit of exclusivity with the Lightning did not get it. The people who were cheering about owning the whales got a chance to buy this ship only to have their $240 ship nerfed into the ground. CIG also states like this ship is not gold standard, that oh, this is an old version of the ship. Okay, so then why did this come out earlier? Why did it take 10 years to get this ship out? Why was it just not put into the very first iterations of the PTU and the very first iterations of every other flight model in the game? This could have been solved so long ago. This problem could have been completely avoided. Could have been completely avoided. They say, oh, well, we released it because people were stealing it and having fun with it. Hey, how about the Aegis M? Can I have my Aegis M now? I own one of those. People steal that thing all the time. Give me that. This whole thing was handled very poorly. Now, if you're only looking at it from a perspective of pure profit, it was not handled poorly at all. But in terms of customer or backer satisfaction, I don't think this was done very well. If this would have came out to backers only, the amount of 10k plus backers, while not insignificant, is not astronomical either, and it's certainly not as many of the people who bought it. They could have adjusted and nerfed this ship very quickly for the 10k plus backers, who would have took the hit and most likely understood that the ship was overpowered and going to get nerfed, instead of releasing it to the masses, only to have the masses buy it, enjoy it, and then just beat it to death with the nerf bat.